Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lone Vic and today is a big day. Today in this video I will be going through, as you can see, Aeon Trespass Odyssey, and this will be a how to play video explaining most of the rules, and I will explain to you in detail what you are going to see in this video in just a minute. This is, as you know, maybe from the unboxing that you've seen on my channel, a monster of a game. It has 3 cycles, 3 campaigns, it has an 80-page rulebook, a 20-page learn to play, so there is almost 100 pages of rules to be explained when playing this game. And this is why this video is one of 2 videos on this how to play Aeon Trespass Odyssey. And in this video we will be covering the adventure and the voyage phases, while the second separate video that you can find on my channel will be devoted to the battle phase and how to combat the enemies, the primordials that you'll be fighting in this game. Hopefully the explanations here will be enough for you to get started on the adventure, and I will avoid all spoilers that are humanly possible while making those videos, so I will be using only a few game components to show you what's going on really, and the rest of this will be a more of show and tell kind of thing. I will be basing on the components that are available in this Learn to Play rulebook. So the assumption is that when you are watching this video, you're at least familiar with what's inside this book and you've went through this mission, or let's say this introduction, the tutorial to the campaign that's in this Learn to Play booklet, and I am expanding on from this. I will be explaining all of the things that are here in this booklet as well, but I will be expanding on those rules and going into the things that you can find in the rule book and a bit beyond as well. In order not to delay any further, we will dive into this box, we will dive into those booklets, and we'll find out how to play the game without any spoilers. Like I said, I will stress it once again, I will be avoiding 99.9% of any spoilers that you can find in the game. If you find this video helpful, or if you like any other content that I have on my channel, you can support the growth of my channel. You can show your support to what I'm doing here at Lone Vic by clicking the like button, hitting the subscribe and ringing the notification bell. And also, if you feel like it, you can buy me a coffee. The link is in the description. All the coffee donations for this channel will be going to growing the equipment, and also a percentage of all the donations is going to fighting climate change as an additional goal. Without further ado, let's dive into the setup of Aeon Trespass Odyssey when we are preparing to do the voyage and adventure phases or steps of the game. Okay, so assuming, guys, that you did go through the Learn to Play booklet and have collected all of the elements that the Learn to Play booklet tells you to collect from the box step by step while you are playing the game, before the beginning of the first round of the campaign and the first adventure phase, you should have the following elements on the table. You should have the map tiles, which correspond to the first cycle, which has this brownish reverse side, as you can see. Here on the table, I've got the 6 tutorial tiles marked T0, T1, and so forth, respectively. You need the miniature of your ship, the Argo, which you will be traveling with across the map of Greece in this game. You need the exploration cards marked with cycle 1 on the bottom if we are starting with the first campaign, and in the box you will find also ones for cycle 2 and cycle 3, obviously. And keep in mind that in the Learn to Play book you have information about which numbers of those cards, so the numbers are here in the bottom left corner, as you can see, which numbers of cards to include in the initial deck that you will be using in the beginning of the game. So not all of the cycle 1 exploration cards will be used in the beginning. This deck will be growing, so keep in mind that you need to find this information in the Learn to Play. You also need the deck of clue cards and story cards for cycle 1, but remember not to go through this, as they should be kept well, secret not to spoil anything in the game. You also need the card for the Inward Odyssey Truth of the Labyrinth, and you put it with the side 1A facing upwards, and don't look at the other side, what I just did right now. You also need your Argo sheet, which is this sheet that is one for the whole campaign, and this is the sheet corresponding to your ship. And as you can see, this one has already some things crossed out because we've played the tutorial mission at least. So you'll find out what's going on this one in a moment when the time is right. And each of the players requires their own Argonaut sheet. So this is this half of this sheet, because I've got two on one page over here, as well as each player requires their own Triskelion and their own portrait card. And this portrait card shows which statistic does each player start with a number 1 skill on, because all of the skills of the Argonaut are 0 at the beginning of the game, and the one that's on the card, so here it's Wisdom, she will have this on 1, and that's it. You don't fill in any other things on those sheets just yet. I've got some saves already from the tutorial over there. And then any other preparations that you need for the campaign will be given to you in the beginning of the campaign booklet, so this thick book with cycle 1, but this is basically the general setup. So the map tiles, the exploration cards, the story and clue cards, the Inward Odyssey, the Triskelion for each player, the sheets, and the Argo miniature. And this should be it. Everything else that you may have on the table should be there as a result of the tutorial Learn to Play booklet that, well, like I said, I assume you've went through already. So now let's talk about the general overview of the game when it comes to this voyage and adventuring phase. A lot of it will be happening on this Argo sheet, so on the sheet of your ship, which is a double-sided one, and on this side you have the choice matrix and some notes about the map and about the boons and all the afflictions and any other notes. You've got the voyage timeline, as you can see, and on this side you've got all the stats of your ship, your adventure tracks, the available titans, the evolution track for the primordials, etc., etc. So a lot of things. And I won't be discussing every single one of those because some of them are not, like for example the god forms or summons are not needed in the beginning of the game, but you will encounter them during the game because you've triggered some effect or you did something that allows you to start using those sections on the Argo sheet or on your Argonaut sheet, and then you will have to go to the rulebook and read up on a specific paragraph because there is so much information that I can't fit it in even 2 movies right now. So I will be skipping just the ones that are, let's say, story driven. I will be going through the ones that are more generic and that are necessary for everybody to know. So as you can see, here you've got the traits for the Argo, so you've got the hull and the crew, and those two are right now after our campaign at level of 4, and whenever they go to 0 you have those notes to go to a specific paragraph in your book because of the effect that this might trigger. You also have a space for recording how many titans you have on board of one or different types. You've got your adventure tracks, which we'll be coming to in a moment, the diplomacy tracks, and here you've got a place to record all the resources that you have, and here you've got some information about the primordials, so the enemies that you will be facing. And now the campaign in this form, when you are exploring, has some win or lose conditions, and we will be talking about those in the course of this video, but I would like to stress them out here in the beginning. So the player's ultimate goal is to reach the end of the storyline in the current cycle, and this will be represented by story cards, which look similarly to this Inward Odyssey card, and you will have them on the table. And as soon as the conditions on the story card are met, then, well, you consider the cycle to be successfully resolved. There are, however, quite a few ways for the campaign to end badly for the Argonauts, so for your characters, and these include resolving the last Doom card that you will find in the cycle, and Doom cards are also similar to these cards, those large cards that you'll have on the table. You'll be collecting some tokens on those Doom cards, and once the effect of the Doom card is triggered, this usually means that the game ends prematurely with your loss. Losing all your crew or your hull back to zero usually means that you have to read those paragraphs, and they usually mean that you trigger the end game as well, because, well, that's the penalty, so you have to watch out for this. You also have one more stat for your ship, for Argo, which is Argo Fate. And this is right now 0 for us, but the maximum for this is 9. And whenever you have 10 or more of Argo Fate, so you cross this 9 threshold, you go to a specific paragraph in the campaign book, and that usually means that the campaign is over prematurely as well. If you get to the end of this timeline and you have not fulfilled the requirements of the story card for the current campaign, the game also ends. And if you initiate a battle with an enemy, so a gigantic primordial that you want to fight, and you have 0 titans available on your ship to fight this primordial, you also automatically lose. And the rulebook also suggests that there are some more narrative triggered and narrative related events that can cause you to win or lose a campaign. But this is generally it, and I will be going back to some of those over the course of this video. Now, the other very important component in this game is this Triskelion, which has 3 stats of Rage, Fate, and Danger. And during the Voyage and Adventure phase, each player will be sometimes asked to increase any of those stats on their character by a specific number. And those Triskelions basically measure your progress over those stats, but remember, note one thing, that whenever you reach the number of 9 on any of those stats or exceed 9, usually that means that your Argonaut is going to suffer some bad fate that can end the campaign as well, or at least end the life of your Argonaut. And that's never a good thing. Those Triskelions will be resetting, but only at the end of every battle, at the end of every combat in the game. So basically, you will be playing a few rounds of exploration and adventuring, and you'll be triggering effects that will be increasing those numbers on the Triskelion. And then you'll be going into combat, which you will see in the second video on my channel, with some of those stats already pumped up, which can be a good and a bad thing, so depending on your situation. But then after the battle, if none of those stats reach 9, you return all of them to 0. So this will happen repetitively, and I will mention this as well during the explanation of combat in the other video. So basically, danger as a stat usually represents your rising threat of dying, and you gain it whenever you are attacked during combat, but also some other negative effects can cause you to get danger. But also ability and gear cards that you possess can benefit from a higher danger value during battle or sometimes during the adventure phase. And if this danger level increases above 9 during battle, you will be drawing an obol card, which is usually not a very good thing because it has at least a 50-50 chance of you dying. But we will get back to this. Fate is representing the extent to which you oppose your destiny, so kind of a luck factor in the game as well. You can gain fate in order to reroll dice and pay for some abilities, but a higher fate count can trigger some negative effects during battle or sometimes during the exploration phase as well. And if you ever have to raise your fate above 9, you will draw something called a Mnemos card, which usually means something seriously bad. And rage represents the fury of your titans, so you raise it every time you attack, but also some other effects can raise it as well. And the higher the rage is, the more priority of a target you are for the enemy, but if you raise your rage above 9, you lose control of your titan, and basically, well, the titan is no longer controllable and it will, let's say, die. So you will lose the titan. And that's it. So those are the relations between those stats, and they all have some positive and some negative effects to be aware of. Okay, so now the last thing in the game overview is to talk about the gameplay flow in the campaign rounds. So as I mentioned, this video will be focusing on the voyage phase and adventure phase, and the battle phase is for a separate video. During a campaign round, you have 9 steps to perform, or 9 phases that you will be performing. And some of those are obligatory and some of them are conditional or optional depending on what's happening in the game. And those 9 steps are movement, advancing the timeline, exploration, expedition, encounter, advancement, story, doom, and the end of the campaign round. And now let's dive into each of those steps in detail and discuss what's going on in each of those. Without too many spoilers happening, you will be starting, guys, every campaign round and every campaign book that you will be starting, you will be starting with your Argo ship placed on a tile. And I will be using tiles from the map from the tutorial version. So like I said, I'm assuming that you've already went through the learn to play, so those tiles shouldn't be a secret to you anymore. So this is how your voyage phase in the first campaign round should start, for example. And the first step of a campaign round sequence is movement, and you always have to move. The Argo can never stay still. You always move 1 tile in any cardinal direction, up, down, left, right, or north, south, east, west, as you prefer, wherever you have an arrow pointing in that direction. You can choose it together as a team. What is related to the rules of the movement is that on those map cards, while you are moving, you will be seeing a lot of different symbols. And those numbered arrows that you can see are informations that this card is connected to another sector that you can move into. Sometimes those arrows will be duplicated, so you have 2 arrows at one edge, which means that the card which you will be placing here will be split and will have 2 different fields that you will be able to travel to, and they don't have to neighbor each other as well. And in this case, before you uncover the new card, you have to decide where you are going. So whether it's this way or this way, for example. These cards also have a lot of other information. In this case, I have a city icon over here. These icons represent the reputation for diplomacy purposes. So some factions that you'll be able to meet on the neighboring tiles. So this, if I go into this or this direction, I will meet the faction with this symbol. I won't even be betraying you the name, not to give you any spoilers. These icons we'll be talking about in a moment as well. Sometimes you will also find some other icons on the map that you will have to engage with. The one important thing is that if you were on a tile with a city like this and you are leaving this tile, you should place a last visited city token on this tile to know which city you visited last, and this will be important for some effects of negotiation or diplomacy during the game, but I won't be spoiling this for you. And remember, no diagonal movements, only in the direction of these arrows. Also, sometimes you'll be noticing a padlock icon next to some of those sector arrows. This means that you cannot travel in those directions unless you meet certain conditions, which will be described in the campaign book usually. This will be very often related to some technology that your ship needs but doesn't have yet, but also can have some other reasons. So basically, the first step in every round of the campaign is to decide which direction the Argo will be traveling in. In the case of this card, I have only one direction, locating the card numbered with the appropriate number, placing it, and moving the Argo. And thus, the movement step is done. The second step in a campaign phase is the timeline step. And for this step, you go to the reverse side of your Argo sheet and you cross out the next consecutively space on the Voyage timeline. As you can see, we've got the T6 reached over here, which means that we finished the tutorial. But T0 would be the step where the ship landed here on this card, and now after moving here I would cross out T1. And sometimes the game will ask you to add some information on those lines here, for example 3 or 4 days from now, which means that you calculate 1, 2, 3, 4 steps from the currently crossed out space, you write down the information here and it will be triggered once you reach this line. Those icons over here we'll be talking about in due time. And remember, once you reach the end of the timeline and you haven't completed the story card of the campaign, you usually lose. So the timeline step is very easy. You move, you advance the timeline one step, and that is basically it. And the third step that you are going to take is the exploration step. And the exploration step has a few things to remember about. First, in the exploration step, you resolve all active exploration symbols. And the exploration symbols, let me give you an instance from those tutorial cards, are those symbols that you usually find in the lower left corner. And the two most popular ones that you will find are the doom symbols and the progress symbols that you will find in this corner here, but also a Titan symbol which can be found on the card itself, like for example in the case of this tutorial card. This is the Titan symbol. Now, whenever you explore a card, so move onto a card that has this progress symbol, you place one progress token on the active story card of your campaign, thus progressing the story and getting it closer to be completed. Whenever you enter a tile with a Doom symbol, you do the same, but for the Doom card, so getting closer and closer to triggering the Doom effect of the card, which can end your campaign in a negative way. The difference between those two symbols is that this progress symbol triggers only once when you enter this tile for the first time, so when you are exploring it and it was earlier unknown. The Doom symbols, however, can be collected or have to be collected every single time you enter this tile, whether it was already uncovered or not yet. So Doom is definitely easier to come across. The progress tokens that you collect from those map cards, from those map tiles, can also be used to fuel your inward odyssey, so this card over here. And how it works is that you always have a choice whether you want to put the progress token on your story card in your game, and the first story card you will get during the learn to play phase, so it will come soon while you are doing the tutorial, or you place the progress token here on the inward odyssey. And whenever you have two progress tokens on the inward odyssey, you discard them and you gain +1 Argo knowledge, which can then trigger some of the effects listed on the inward odyssey card. The last icon that I've shown you that's active during the exploration step is this one that's connected with the Titans. And whenever you encounter a tile with this icon exactly, you basically add one Dreamwalker Titan into your Titan pool on your Argo sheet, and those will be the Titans that you'll be able to use. And after you've triggered any of those Doom or Progress or Titan icons, you perform something called an Exploration Draw. And the Exploration Draw is using the Exploration deck that you've created during the tutorial and that you'll be modifying over the course of this campaign. So how it looks is that you do 2 draws every single exploration draw. So during every single exploration step, you draw a card, you trigger or resolve all of the effects of this card. You gain, for example, some resources, and if you are at war with the faction that you are currently located on or on the tile of, you lose something. Let's ignore this icon for a moment. And if you have this icon, meaning that this is the end of stack symbol, you basically stop with this stack and you draw for the second time from the deck. If, however, you draw a card that has this symbol in the corner, which means draw another symbol, that means that you resolve the information on this card and then you draw another one to this stack. So basically you'll be creating 2 stacks of cards during every exploration draw until you find a card with this end stack symbol. You do it 2 times, you collect all the resources, you trigger all the positive and negative effects, and then the exploration draw is ended. The third thing that will be happening, and I won't be spoiling this too much hopefully, is that you will be moving the adversary on the map. Now the adversary will be a primordial who will be chasing you around the map, and if they catch up with the Argo, you will have an additional fight to go through. And this is triggered by these symbols on the exploration cards. Now, if you want to know how those movements of the adversary are triggered and how they work, go to the rulebook to page 16 and take a look at the Moving the Adversary chapter. I won't be discussing this in detail because, well, we haven't reached the place in the campaign where the adversary is showing up on the map yet, and the Learn to Play doesn't do it as well, so I won't be going into a lot of detail about this. And the last thing that happens is that sometimes you will perform acclamations. So if the step on your Voyage timeline reached this box with an acclamation information, this is the time to perform it. What's an acclamation, you ask? Well, you take your exploration deck for the current cycle that you have, and you take a look at the information on the acclamation table, and you look for the cards with the numbers given on the left side of the arrow. You remove them from the exploration deck and return them to the box, and then you take the numbered cards from the exploration deck from the box that are on the right side of the arrow, and you add them to the exploration deck for your gameplay. So this means that this exploration deck will be evolving, will be adding new cards, removing some of the old cards, maybe getting more difficult, maybe getting more complicated. Okay, so this is step number 3 out of 9, so we're not out of the woods yet, guys. The next step is called an expedition step, and the expedition step is resolved conditionally on whether your card that you're currently on has this, for example, icon, which is an adventure icon, or it has an R&R icon, which refers to a bit of a different adventure. And if present on a card that you're on, after you do all the exploration steps, so the moving the adversary and the exploration draw and so forth and so on, if you have this icon on the map card, you will trigger something called the adventure phase. And the adventure phase is kind of like a separate phase within the Voyage phase that has its own set of rules. So let's go to those right now and talk about a few details on this. So I won't be talking about the R&R phase too much if you have an R&R icon on your map card, because during the tutorial you don't meet the R&R icon. So if you do finally meet an R&R icon, you will consult the rulebook and find out what are the differences in triggering this expedition step in this way. But if you encounter an adventure, then usually what you will do during the campaign is that you will take a d10 dice and you will roll it to find out what adventure awaits on the map at this time. For a moment I will use the rulebook right now, because in your campaign books you will find a table called the Adventure Hubs, and this is an example of this table right over here. And this table will tell you what adventure you will be going to, and you'll be able to find out, you know, what the progress is. So this Adventure Hub table has, as you can see, story numbers over here that start with columns, and then adventure hubs and battle terrains. So you take a look at the story card that you actively right now have in the campaign. For example, a story card numbered 1A or 1B would be story 1, and story cards marked 2A or 2B are story 2, and so on. And you roll a d10 die provided with the game, and you look at the specific column pertaining to the story, and depending on the number, you go to a specific adventure hub in your campaign book. And the adventure hubs have this kind of table over here, which shows you that the first adventure is called this, the last adventure is called this, and in between you should roll the dice and see which adventure you are going on. And here on your Argo sheet for the first campaign you have different sets of adventure tracks, as you can see. So if, for example, I rolled on the Adventure Hub, I rolled an adventure called the Fated Conundrum, I would look over here and see if I have the alpha symbol crossed out. If not, that means that I go to the Fated Conundrum Adventure Hub table and I see what is the name of the alpha adventure, and I go into this one. But if I have the alpha crossed out, you'll see that I will be able to do 3 different adventures before I go to the omega, so to the last adventure. So if I need to cross out an empty space without an alpha or an omega, that means that I roll the die and I decide on the roll of the die which of these adventures in the middle of the adventure hub I will be crossing out and going through, and then advancing until the omega finishes the adventure with, for example, in this case, till death. This also leads us to one thing. During one single campaign session, let's say, so over the course of playing one campaign, you won't be able to see all of those adventures. You'll be able to see only a part of them. And this increases the replayability of a huge game that Aeon Trespass Odyssey is, but the replayability story-wise is even bigger because of that. So during this step of expedition, not only do you do the hub adventures, so those symbols that I've already told you, but you will also be doing R&R symbols, which you will sometimes find on the cards, and they will also be referred to in the campaign book. You will be triggering the events from the Inward Odyssey card if you've collected enough of Argo knowledge, which I mentioned previously. There is also something called the Dream of Pharaohs, but I won't be getting into that because those icons are far, far away in the future, so you will have to refer to the rulebook once you encounter them. And now let's take a look at the Mnemos card so that I can explain to you what happens when you gain a Mnemos card and what happens when you trigger a Mnemos breakthrough. So guys, this is an example of a Mnemos card that you will collect during the tutorial, so no big spoilers here. And a Mnemos card is a card that's attached to a specific Argonaut, and the game will tell you how to identify which Argonaut is getting the Mnemos card. And for example, this Mnemos card is called Imprisonment, and it has 3 stats, let's say, Curse, Dream, and Crime. And it has also a few skills over here. So once an Argonaut gains a Mnemos card, they increase their stats by those numbers on the bottom over here, and they have the first level of the skill active. Once you gain a Mnemos card, you take your Argonaut sheet, you place the name of your Mnemos onto this Mnemos list, and you also copy the number that you have next to this first breakthrough. So I don't know if you can see this, but this is M002, and you place it here. And this is your breakthrough track for your Mnemesis. And then you keep this card with you, and every single time when you go onto an adventure, the adventure in the campaign book, next to the name of the adventure, it will have one of the traits that can be associated with any of the Mnemesis you have. Maybe, but they don't have to. But maybe they are associated. If they are, each Argonaut that has a Mnemos corresponding to at least one of those names next to the adventure crosses out one node on the Mnemos track on their sheet. And you can only cross out one node even if you have 2 or 3 Mnemesis, for example. Well, 2 maximum Mnemesis each person can have is 2. Even if you have 2 currently active Mnemesis that fit the adventure, you have to decide which one you will be crossing out. And so this Mnemes track will be gaining those nodes until you fill in the first 3 and you get to this triangle, which will cause a breakthrough. And then the second level ability from the Mnemos card will become active as well for your Argonaut, and you'll be collecting all the nodes up until the level 3, and then you will collect nodes to close this Mnemes, this memory, and you'll be getting benefits from that. So there are quite a lot of things connected with those Mnemesis. And there are also fated Mnemesis in this game, which are like kind of a punishments, debuffs that you will be getting during the game, but you can find information on this and also on what to do when you have too many Mnemes cards, so too many to give to any of the players, on page 30 and 31 of the rulebook. I won't be going through all of those things right now. So this was step 4. So step 4, the expedition, leading you to the adventure, to an R&R event, or maybe a Mnemos breakthrough if you are lucky enough. After the expedition step, you have the encounter step, and this triggers only if the day that you marked on the Voyage timeline has this battle icon next to it, or written in the line because the game told you to write down this event on a line at a special day. If it does, you will have to set up a battle and fight a primordial. And if you want to know more about this, there is a separate video on my channel devoted to this step of the campaign round. So I will just skip through it into the next step, but I will tell you only 2 things here right now. At the end of every battle, remember that all of the Triskelions will be reset to 0 unless a game effect says otherwise. And also at the end of the battle, the campaign book will usually tell you that the fate of Argo is lowered by a specific number. It can be different from campaign to campaign. In the case of the first one, it's usually by 2. So this will enable you to, be further away from, well, the bad end of the campaign, let's say. So the battle is done in a separate video. Let's go to step 6 out of 9. So we're getting close to the end. The 6th step is the advancement step. And in the advancement step, you basically usually you do 1 or 2 things. If, again, going back to the Voyage timeline, if on your Voyage timeline you have one of these icons over here, for example, or one of those here, right? There are 2 types. That means that you can choose one from the available advancements for your ship and introduce it into your ship, build it onto your ship. Those advancements are in 2 different versions. So there is a structural technology advancement, which, coming back to the sheet, has this kind of a sail icon, and this 5th icon is reserved to battle technologies. So depending on which icon is triggered on the timeline, right now in the advancement step, you will be selecting a battle or a structural technology that is available for you, and you will be placing it on your ship. During the tutorial, you've also probably uncovered those large technology cards, which kind of serve as information about what we do in specific phases of the game, but also are instigators of the technology tree that will be growing on your ship. So those four are basically the ones that you'll be starting with: the Titan Stoa, the Bridge Tholos, Excursion Propylion, and the Last Academy. And I will tell you one thing: on the other side of those cards, those names are completely different, and no peeking, but I had a tough time locating those cards in the box because I was looking at this side of the cards and not this one. So be aware. Just friendly warning over here. If, however, you don't have any of those technology breakthrough icons on your current timeline step, right, on your current timeline line or day or however you call it, there is always one more thing that you can do during this advancement phase, and that's crafting gear. If you have any technologies that allow you to craft gear, this is the time to spend the resources from the cargo hold of your Argo to craft the gear. This is the time. And then this gear can be equipped onto the Titans when you are preparing for battle, and so forth and so on. There is also one thing that you can do in this advancement step, which is called Titan breeding, but you don't get to do it during the learn to play. It will be discovered in the course of the campaign, so I won't be talking about this here. You will have to refer to the rulebook once you encounter this for the first time, because it's related to having a specific technology invented first on your ship. And the description for this you can find on page 19 in the rulebook. Okay, step number 7 in a campaign round is called the story step. And this is connected to the story progression. Now, during the tutorial, you won't yet have uncovered any story cards. This will happen in the beginning of the campaign after a first few things that you do, so I won't be spoiling this for anybody, but the story progression is related to the number of progression tokens that you collect on your story card on the table. And if you've collected enough, according to the rules of the story card, you will now trigger whatever effects the story card has in store for you, which will usually propel you through the story and get you closer to a positive outcome of the campaign. Sometimes the game will tell you to get a story card, like a smaller one, or a clue card, this is called, and those have different effects. Sometimes they have some secret codes or some messages that you will have to be familiarized with. And also, this story step is the step in which you resolve the Mnemos breakthroughs that you managed to reach while collecting the nodes for your Mnemos cards. And after this step, so after the story step, or if you had nothing to do in the story step, comes the doom step. And in the doom step, similarly to the story step, you take a look at how many tokens, Doom tokens, the negative ones, you've collected on your Doom card. And I can show you the first Doom card because you get it during the tutorial. So this is the Doom card. It looks gloomy, right? So if you manage to collect enough Doom tokens here, then during the Doom step, you resolve everything that you have here. And usually that means that you'll also flip this Doom card to the other side. So to the side B. If this is 1A, then 1B would be on the reverse. And if you manage to collect enough tokens on the 1B side, that usually means that it's going to be close to end of the game. So you have to watch out for that. And guys, we're getting to the last step, and the last step is called the end step. Now, during the end step, if you are on an unexplored tile, so a tile that was newly uncovered, it becomes explored. That means that the adventure icons, the R&R icons, the progression icons, the Titan icons won't be able to be triggered again when you are coming back to this tile. The only triggers will be the cities and the Doom icons for the Doom tokens. And that's basically it. And during the first game session, knowing which tiles are explored is very easy. They are the ones that are revealed on the table, but during later games, the map can be so big that it will become very cumbersome to recreate the whole map every single time, which is why the explored tiles will be separated from the unexplored ones when you are playing the game and you are saving the game. And now let's very quickly, because this is the end of the campaign round step, now let's very quickly talk about saving the campaign. So you can save a game of Aeon's Trespass Odyssey at the end of any of the steps that I was talking about, but I find it best to finish and save the game at the end of the last step of the campaign round so that you always know where you are. And what you need to do in order to save a session is that you need to take your Argo sheet. You need to note the number of the story card you are currently at and the number of progress tokens you have on it. The same for Doom card. So as you can see, we don't have a story card yet, but we have a Doom card with 1A with 2 Doom tokens. You note the number of the map tile you're on. You collect all of the explored map cards and you add it to the stack of the explored cards in the box. There is a separate compartment for that. You hide all the unexplored ones separately so that they don't mix up. On the last page of the Argo sheet, next to the choice matrix, there is a map over here, and you can also add any other information relevant to the map over here, or any other, information about the position of the adversary or something like that. On the sheets of the Argonauts, you mark the triskelion numbers that each Argonaut ended with. You store the technology deck of the Argo, the projects that are available, your armory, so your items that you've built, the exploration deck that's currently created, the Mnemos cards that your Argonauts possess in a separate place in the box so that they don't mix up easily, and usually that's it. Talking about this exploration or adventure phase or voyage phase, however you call it, there is also something called nymph summoning and divine surges and things related to diplomacy, but those things will be contextual during the game. While you play, you don't encounter them in the Learn to Play tutorial, and they are explained pretty well in the rulebook, so I will be skipping them so as not to spoil too much of the game for you. Okay guys, so I think I've reached the end of the Voyage adventure phase of Aeon Trespass Odyssey. As you can see, it's not heavy in components right now as I have set it up, but believe me, when it comes to the amount of things you do explore and interact with, it's oh so huge. I hope that this video helped you a bit, at least, to wrap your head around the immense monster of a game that Aeon Trespass Odyssey is. If you have any questions about any of the things that I've said, about any of the rules that you find in the book, or any of the things that you did in the campaign, try to refrain from spoilers then, please. You can use the comment section under this video and I will try as best of my abilities to help you figure out what to do in the game and help you navigate through it. For now, thank you for watching this video, and I hope once again that it helped you, because it definitely helped me to, sum up all the information from the rulebook and create a scenario for this movie and talk it through. And I know that the next session that we'll be playing in the campaign will be easier thanks to that. So I hope that you gained something from this movie as well. And remember that you can support what I'm doing here on this channel, helping the channel grow by clicking the like button under the video, hitting the notification bell and clicking the subscribe button. And you can also, if you want to, no pressure whatsoever, support me by buying me a coffee. The link is in the description. Everything that will come from this support will be thrown in towards bettering the equipment that I'm recording with, and also a percentage from those coffees is going to helping fight the climate change. So thank you guys for watching and staying here with me. My name was Lone Vic. This was the adventure/voyage phase of a campaign of Aeon Trespass Odyssey. See you very, very soon on my channel in another of my videos. And if you want to see how the battle phase plays out, check out the other video, which should be on my channel in a few days from this one, or it already is there if you're watching this video a few days later than it was premiered. Thanks once again, have a great day, stay safe, see you very, very soon, and bye-bye.